Dr. Kien Vu. So we'll have everyone go down the line and say a little bit about the work they're doing and then how they got started, and then we'll follow up after that. So, Dr. Vu.
All right. Well, I'm Kien Vu, and I am an interventional oncologist. And for those of you that don't know, we use image-guided techniques to do minimally invasive surgeries and procedures for cancer patients, or at least half of my practice is that. And we're going to get into the projects a little bit later.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We'll get into the
Hey,
projects
it's
a
all
little later, but hey, we'll go with that.
Was that me? Was that me?
No. Everybody's safe. We have a radiologist in the house.
So we'll start again, and just basically say a little bit about your background and sort of your history in the medical field, and then we'll go into more after that.
Oh,
Changing up.
Bruce.
You talking to me? I have no history in the medical
No,
field.
first Kien, and then Bruce, sort of like how he's affected by the medical field.
Right. So, I'm an interventional oncologist. I've done medicine now for the past, it's training been 15-ish years. In the last 4 years, focused on using image-guided techniques to do minimally invasive procedures. About 50% of my practice is working with oncology patients, and a lot of what has inspired my own kind of personal passion project recently.
That's great. And then I know, Bruce, you're one of Kien's patients. So
Former patients and now just good friend and mentor. He doesn't know how much he's mentored me, but I mean, we'll probably get into some of that.
We'll follow up with that in a second. Then we'll go to Kristen Addix. So Kristen, tell us a little bit about your background sort of in the medical field and sort of where you're going now with your life and your new project.
Having been sick when I was little and having to sort of bootstrap my own health, and I was one of the people, because I had pre-existing conditions, I couldn't get health coverage till only a few years ago when the Affordable Care Act happened. So basically I've gone from 18 till a couple years ago with no medical coverage. So I've had incidents that have happened, and one of them inspired the project that I'll talk about, which is a medical tool that lives in the app world, which helps facilitate patient and doctor post-procedure communications and makes a difference so that patients feel taken care of, doctors are less stressed, and 30-day readmission rates have dropped. So it's a big mouthful, but it came from a personal experience and sort of had an epiphany as a designer and fell into the med tech world myself.
That's brilliant. So Dr. Vu, we'll go back to you, or you?
We'll go with Kien here.
Kien, Dr. Kien. So we'll talk to you about Live Again project. So sort of tell all of us what was the catalyst to want to start that, and sort of where you at now with it.
Yeah, so, life was very different, I would say, a month ago, 6 weeks ago. But since the Live Again project, began, life is a little bit different. But the Live Again project pretty much started, I think, when I first started becoming an attending physician. I would notice, since I've worked with a lot of cancer patients, a lot of people with maybe terminal diseases, that a lot of what my most valuable lessons in life have been from my patients. And particularly talking about oncology patients, I've recognized that diagnosis is very difficult for many people to handle. I've had some patients have the diagnosis, and they live on the diagnosis, and they've given up on life. Everything they're thinking about is what they can control, the next test, and they're consumed by it. I fortunately have also a small subset of patients that have been through a lot in life. I recently interviewed some Holocaust patients, and cancer to them was something that they just dealt with, and they recognized that there was so much more to live for. They went on, but there's another set of patients, patients like Bruce, and patients like, the one that, maybe I'll get a chance to talk about in a second, that from their cancer diagnosis, they really went through a process of reevaluating themselves and and their life, and they recognize that they, at the end of the day, are much bigger than they really thought they were. You know, they weren't just their body, and life wasn't the way it was, and it's something bigger. And they've become something so much bigger. You know, the love that you found for, you know, with your family and the connection that you were able to do, the purpose they've rediscovered in life. That has been the stories that have been most inspirational to me. And after doing some work and meeting patients like Bruce, I really felt at some point I need to share the story. And you know, most recently, 2016 has been a very tough year for me. It started off, I couldn't use my arm for like a couple of months because I had shoulder surgery. I didn't think, you know, I'm a surgeon and not using my arm, well, it's tough. It was that. It was, I joined a new practice and trying to build a new practice and all the stresses associated with that. I, you know, ended a relationship during that time. That was tough. And about maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, my life was just, wow, you know, nothing is going right for me as a person. And I walked into a room with a patient who was 43 with pancreatic cancer, and his belly was fully distended. And I had to do what's called a paracentesis, which is relieve some fluid. And I walk in the room, and I just remember feeling, because he had a really bright smile, I remember him saying, "Doc, it's really great to see you." And I was going through just in my head, oh man, I'm not getting my relationship right. This year really sucks. And I just look at him and I'm like thinking, I took a step back and I'm like, how is he able to be so bright and so positive and so present? And I just started to question that more. And he, you know, basically told me this. I said, how are you able to just be this way? You know, with this diagnosis, where do you find your strength? And he says, "Doc, well, it's a great day to be alive." And I was still sort of questioning that for a little bit, and I said, I understand that, but where do you get your strength? And he says, "Doc, it's easy. I don't live for me. I know my purpose, and every day I have the privilege of being on this earth. I can choose to love the people I'm around more and live my purpose." And at that moment, I was reminded of all the stories my other oncology patients who've kind of gone through the same process have gotten to. And since then, I said, well, you know, I wanted to share these stories before, but I got to make this happen now. So maybe just a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, I said, hey, and the name Live Again was just that, because it inspired me, and knock on wood, I don't think I have cancer, but it inspired me as somebody without that experience decide, wow, I do have a purpose that's larger than me. And that these stories, you know, just how vulnerable these people can be in sharing their life can inspire not only other cancer patients, because I've shared your story with other cancer patients, and they picked up. I'm like, wow, that's important to me. And you recognize that people from all backgrounds, it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter what race you are, this is something that is so real and true to so many people, and if you become vulnerable to that, you can see somebody else for their humanity, and then it allows yourself to become a bigger person than you didn't think you were before, which is what you told me you did after you got the diagnosis, right?
Well, I always loved my family.
Yeah.
But what I did when I found that out, I wrote letters. Here I go. To each member of my family, and express what they meant to me. And I'm just, in this thing, I'm just humbled by the fact that so many people care so much. And it's just brought me closer my brothers especially.
Yeah.
So talk to us, Bruce, like what type of cancer were you diagnosed with? And then with Dr. Kian, what was his role in helping you deal with all that?
Well, I had liver cancer, and I was scheduled for a liver transplant. And 3 days before I was going to go, they had me scheduled to go to the University of Alabama to get the transplant. And I think you called me and said, you got to come in, forget the transplant, you got to come in here. And then he explained that the tumor had invaded the portal vein, which is not good. And he had a tearful little thing there with my wife and this guy. And you really mean so much to me too. And I could tell what that guy said he was happy to see you, because I was always happy to see you too. But, where was I?
You were just telling us about the diagnosis and
Yeah,
sort of
the diagnosis.
how
And then-
Dr. Wu helped you through that process.
And then, we ended up doing 4 taste procedures, which Dr. Wu did.
It's one of the things in interventional oncology we do to be able to palliate and slow down the growth of liver tumors. It's called a chemoembolization.
So when somebody has liver cancer, what is the survival rate generally? And then Bruce sounds like he's been doing well since this.
He's been doing well. There's been many, many advances in medicine that allows people to have lived longer. Advances in liver transplant techniques and then minimally invasive procedures have allowed people to live longer. Somebody with portal vein invasion, if they don't do anything, the survival rate in 2 years is anywhere from 2 to 10%. And so, but I mean, with the techniques that we have now, I mean, our friends over at the City Hope have done electroporation procedures to zap out small tumors. People are living much longer. So now Bruce is a very fortunate one. Because how long has it been now? It's been
3 years. I think.
3 years and you're tumor free right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great. Yeah, so he's already passed the line for most people.
Yeah.
And so when you met Bruce and you learned about the story, you wanted to capture that and put it on video and then sort of go into like what Live Again project is. Like, how do you envision it as an online community, and then where is it today and where do you see it the next 5 years?
Right. Well, I actually never thought I'd get Bruce on camera.
Yeah.
This was always just, I probably need to share these stories. And, like I said, 2016 was a tough year, and when I finally decided, hey, I need to share this story, I didn't know what I was doing. So I just went on Facebook, live, and I said, I'm going to do this project, and I'm going to go interview Bruce, because, I told him about wanting to kind of do something, and he just, when I mentioned that, he said, hey, I want to help you.
That was just at the time when I decided I wanted to share this story.
Yeah, so it just all happened. It was so strange, because meeting all of you guys actually being on the stage was so, some people would say circuitous, but like, we just met a few weeks ago, and boom, this has happened. It almost makes you feel like sometimes if you're meant to do something in the world, the universe just gives it to you,
Right. And there's no portal like what you've created, right? There's not really a
There's
central-
not, yeah, so what's the idea? The concept really is this. I mean, it's all about stories. So I really want to create a space, an online space, and community for anybody affected with cancer, whether it be a patient, a family member, a friend, to be able to share their stories, their challenges, and their breakthroughs. And then hopefully in that sharing, people just see the humanity of being able to connect with each other, by being
Not
vulnerable.
only it
we
gives
can connect.
inspiration and motivation to cancer people.
Yeah.
The people that have cancer, it motivates them. It just gives a chance for survival. A lot of my friends that had cancer, they were just out of connection. They didn't want to meet people. They didn't want to see people.
Exactly.
They didn't want to talk to anybody.
I can understand.
But once they're alone at home, they can look, they can see, they can hear, they can get at least inspired. They can at
Yes.
least find a way of
Yes.
survival.
Yeah. So I think these stories, if you put these stories out and people could hear it, it will just allow people like myself who don't have cancer, or other people who have cancer that I've shared your story. You won't believe, even several years before this, when I've shared your story, how it's lifted people up. And so,
That's awesome.
no, you've got a powerful story. So I'm thinking with this sharing, people can really look at themselves deeper, probably like you did, and just be the better version of themselves, whether you're facing cancer or not. You know, I like to be able to remove the stigma of not being able to share, not being able to be authentic, and not being able to share how you're feeling, whether it be scared, or you need help, or you're overwhelmed. You know, I want a space for people to be able to express that and create something safe for people to come on and share those things. Because I know in those stories lives inspiration. I know in those stories lives you and I are more connected than whatever it is, our race or anything. I think there's a humanity with that. There isn't an online community support group for chatting either. So the furthest this goes down, I'd like to be able to create online communities where people are actually having support groups online where they can see each other. And then that makes a person who has a rare cancer and who say, well, am I all alone or not? They can team up with somebody else and form these support groups online. So I really like to create that space, which I don't think is quite there. I mean, you've looked at a lot of places online, and
Yeah.
you've seen that, right?
Yeah, I was looking all over and I didn't really find much.
Because due to the isolation, they prefer to be isolated for a period of time. And then when they get isolated, they look for people to talk to. And whatever you're doing is brilliantly helping them all.
Yeah, I'm hoping really just the awareness of, you know, hearing it for the first time or looking at people talking about cancer openly, that when you discover it or when you discover it with somebody else, that it's not some stigma like how do I respond to this? Do I talk about it, not talk about it, and it removes that, you know, because
They're
I think
puzzled. They don't know.
I think
what
being
to do.
able to be truly vulnerable, you finally are able to get access to yourself and be your most authentic self and be able to connect a little bit more. Yeah.
I didn't even tell my friends for a long time because I didn't want them to not know how to act and
Right.
stuff, you know.
It goes from both sides. And recently, Bruce, and he was afraid he wouldn't be a good public speaker, but you shared your story online for the first time.
Yeah,
You know, friends that you were close to didn't even know.
yeah.
But what was the response that you've got? I mean, in the past 2 weeks,
Yeah, that was,
I mean, the video that we did together, which was totally impromptu, it's got a couple thousand of views now because you were able to do that.
it's over 3,000, I think.
You're gonna be a star.
No, I told him.
Yeah.
He's going to be a motivation speaker, for sure.
Or Adele and Lady Gaga. Or what you know. So let's go to Kristen. Kristen, tell us a little bit about like your connecting between doctors and patients, and sort of like how your app started and where you're at when you're at.
Well, I've grown up with 2 doctors in my family, so I understand the brain of a surgeon. My brother-in-law is chief of staff of a hospital, and so I really get how the ER doctor and how the general surgeon's mind thinks. And I had a situation, and a lot of things that are brought into the world come from a personal experience.
Yeah.
So I had a surgery on my back, and it wasn't big, and it wasn't huge, but it had 10 subcutaneous stitches and 10 topical stitches between my shoulder blades. It's not big, but it's not small. And having 2 doctors in my family, I follow my post-procedural instructions to the letter. And so it's on a Wednesday, and on a Thursday in the evening, I had my friend, because it was between my shoulders, remove my gauze and clean it as prescribed. And just being a kid of a family of doctors and having gone to doctors my whole life, I don't squeam. And I said, oh, let me look at that. And I looked in the mirror and it looked angry. And for people who don't know what that is, that's a term for hot or red or upset or possible infection. So I'm thinking it's 7 o'clock at night on a Thursday. Now in the old paradigm, I would have had the choice of him trying to shove me into his Friday clinic, blowing his staff's day, blowing his other patient's day, messing the whole calendar up for that day. And it's too early for me to have my stitches removed, so it's a wasted visit anyway, and if nothing's wrong. And if I call and describe it to him, he's gonna have no choice. Or he's gonna make me wait all weekend long and freak out. Like I have a grenade that's gonna have the pin pulled. I'm gonna think, what's going on? Is it infected? Is it infected? Is it infected? And just be on that track all weekend. So I thought, HIPAA be damned, it's my back. We all have one of these. And I threw my phone at my friend and said, you take a picture, I'm texting it to him. I know they're not supposed to, but if it ends up on the internet, it's my back. And I'm not Lady Gaga. So nobody's probably wanting a picture of my back, right?
Yeah.
So I sent it to him, and 5 minutes later, there's a response. Looks great. See if you follow up next week. And I woke up the next morning and I realized that if there wasn't a VPN, which is a virtual private network, encrypted, HIPAA compliant, post-procedure, post-incident in an emergency room, messaging software, which has become way deeper than that. It helps people with post-procedural instructions, which is personalized. It helps triage for the doctor.
What's the app's name, by the way? I don't believe
It's called MDL, or My Doctor Links. And so it triages in the inbox for the doctor who needs to be answered first, because at the end of a 12-hour day of surgery, you're handed a stack of messages from some assistant, some baby doc, or some assistant or LPN, and you have no idea who to answer first. And now you have to spend 2 hours deciphering through all these messages, answering phone calls. 90% of the stuff really doesn't require a phone call. Can I take Tylenol instead of Advil? Yes, no. This is happening, go straight to the emergency room, I'll meet you there. I mean, a lot of stuff is, that looks great. Because to me, it looks bad. To you, it's what you see every day. You're like, wow, nice work. Right? And so patients really just want a reassuring pat on the back that everything's okay, or if it's not, to be instantly taken care of. But I've seen incidents where you look at the in and out box of the patient and the doctor's phone, and it takes an average, one question takes an average of 45 minutes of manpower.
It could, yeah.
Well,
You call the receptionist. The receptionist now handles it and takes the message. They now go to an LPN or an assistant. The assistant now handles it and goes to maybe you. You then send it back down the food chain to the assistant. The assistant now goes to the receptionist, if they're lucky. Or if the doctor thinks it's important that they now handle it, you have to wait till most of the time till the end of their day for a lot of physicians. So the patient in all this time is now waiting. And it has been
panicking.
handled through so many people where the question was, can I take Tylenol instead of Advil? Because every time I take Advil, I want to throw up. And you're on rounds and you're in between rooms, and it lives right in that little logo app, right? So it's not in your normal stream, it's not in your normal email, it's not in a message that's in an inbox somewhere, it's not in a voicemail that you have to, that's long-winded that you have to listen to, you're like, I can't later. And you don't mean that out of anything disrespectful, but you can't listen to a 5-minute voicemail sometimes between rooms on rounds. But you see, the simple question of can I take Advil versus Tylenol, or can I take Tylenol versus Advil, and you know it's perfectly fine for that patient, yes.
Oh.
Boom, done. Now it's cleared
Perfect
so
analysis.
many of the patients off the doctor's list that doesn't need time. Now you're left with quality time for the patients that really need your help. So it's also solved that people can actually now, the patients that actually need the doctor's focused attention can have it because their deck is cleared of all this stuff. And everybody's getting a warm fuzzy feeling because everybody's getting communicated to.
No, I definitely think that applications like that, anything that could help triage along the way and be able to kind of organize that triage